Welcome back to the channel. This is Rashad with Hoops Times 2. Hope you enjoyed the video. Watch to the end to really get what I mean. Subscribe if you're new. Enjoy. I know at first calling Bill Russell overrated might sound harsh and disrespectful to an all-time great, a guy with much respect around the league. Dominated the 60s, one of the best centers of all time, but once you start applying context and really digging into how much weaker the 60s were compared to today, you might be able to get what I mean. When I call him overrated, I'm saying his dominance was overrated because the 60s were a much weaker time. He always had the best team and guys who could equal his talent or surpass it, like Wilt Chamberlain, didn't have the talent that Bill Russell had in his team to really compete with him on the biggest stages, which is why I think Bill Russell's 11 rings is also a bit overrated, because he dominated fewer teams and teams that were not as talented and skilled as today. So watch to the end of the video to really get what I mean by calling him overrated. Don't just disagree with me right away and leave a like. I say Bill Russell's overrated in situations where people call him the GOAT or put him in their top 5. Someone might call Bill Russell the GOAT because their meaning of the greatest of all time is whoever dominated their era the best. Only their era. But I don't agree with this because the 60s were much weaker than the 90s and of course today. "11 beats 6. Another Bill Russell GOAT argument that lacks context and lacks information, has holes in it. Saying one player has more rings than another player makes him better just doesn't make sense. When people say 5 beats 3 when Kobe and LeBron, that just isn't enough context to really prove a point. You have to factor in their teammates, their competition in the era, and how good they were at that point. I think the biggest thing to factor in when talking about Bill Russell, and the biggest thing that he's missed, is the competition or the lack of competition in the 60s. The 60s were a much weaker time than the 90s compared to Jordan, who had guys like Hakeem, Magic later in his career, Karl Malone, John Stockton, guys like that to compete against. Bill Russell had guys like Wilt, but Bill Russell always had a better team surrounding him than Wilt Chamberlain. There were also less teams in the NBA. Guys were a lot more one-dimensional in Bill Russell's time. If you were a big man, you were down on the block, blocking shots, getting rebounds. You didn't have many guys like Kevin Durant who could put the ball on the floor, who could shoot, could basically play guard at 7 feet. You didn't have that in the 60s. You didn't have guys like Kyrie Irving who could be fresh options for your team and run your whole offense. When I say there was less competition in the NBA in the 60s, I don't only mean players weren't as good and skilled. I literally mean there was less competition. When Bill Russell was drafted, there was 8 teams. When he retired, there was 14 teams. Comparing that to someone like LeBron, who has 29 other teams trying to stop him at all time. Same with Michael Jordan. I talked about the players Michael Jordan had to play against to win the championship compared to Bill Russell's players. But someone like LeBron has 29 other teams trying to come at him. Maximum, Bill Russell had 13 other teams trying to stop him, meaning there was literally less competition, less teams and players to fight for the championship with. And I can't say this enough with Bill Russell and the teams he played against. There wasn't as much competition as there is today. Again, there was a lot fewer teams when he was drafted. There was 8. When he retired, there was 14. So due to that, there's obviously less competition. There's less players and teams to play against. There are 4 guys I will put in the Celtics in the 60s instead of Bill Russell, and I know they could do the same thing or better. First guy being LeBron James, 6'8", 250. Obviously, no one in the 60s has seen anything like him. The best passer at the small forward position of all time. And he could dominate the 60s better than Bill Russell can. And I know he could. Here's some career averages. LeBron did this in a harder era, by the way. Second guy I would replace Bill Russell with is Kevin Durant. 7 foot. Already talked about him in this video. Can put the ball on the floor, can shoot. Later in his career, right now, he could play better defense than he's ever played before. So this is another guy I would put in the 60s. People in the 60s will be confused with Kevin Durant because he's 7 foot, but he's not on the post all the time. He's also around the perimeter, and he could do other things besides just be in the post like all big men could only do back then. Third guy I would replace Bill Russell with is Steph Curry. even though he's not as big as Bill Russell, I don't see this being a problem because, again, offensively, no one in the 60s can handle Steph Curry, the best shooter of all time. Although the three-point line doesn't help him at all in the 60s because it hasn't been implemented yet. There is no three-point line, so it's only twos, obviously. But Steph can still really fry anyone in the 60s with his offensive talent. Last guy I will put on the Celtics instead of Bill Russell in the 60s is Allen Iverson. Again, another guy that can't be handled in the 60s, couldn't be handled in today's league, so how would the 60s handle him? Which is why I'm saying Bill Russell's 11 rings is overrated a bit, because you could add any superstar from today and put them back then and they would do the same thing or better. There's any superstar you could put back there: Magic, Kareem, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. You just have to pick one, and I think they could do the same thing Bill Russell did. In conclusion, if there is one NBA legend I would have to pick to be overrated, it would be Bill Russell. The factors that play into that, I've been naming this whole video: the lack of competition in the 60s, the fact that there were less teams in the NBA. There were 14 max in Bill Russell's career compared to 30 today, meaning he had literally less competition because players weren't as skilled and talented, and he had less teams and less players that could stop him, try to take down the Celtics. So with this being said, I still have much respect for Bill Russell, which might be hard to believe because of everything I've said this video, but I still respect his 11 rings, even though I do think it's overrated. I still respect him as a pioneer of the game and paving the way for superstars today. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Rashad with Hoops Times 2. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe if you're new and you love NBA content. Peace out.